Dr. Joe Schwarcz is just standing by. He's hosted the Dr. Joe Show, which airs Sundays at 3 here on CJAD 800. He's also director of the McGill Office for Science and Society. And Joe, I read the first headline, which is a retracted study about apple cider vinegar. I thought apple cider vinegar was the cure-all for anything and everything.
Well, if you remember, we did talk about this study. It was a little while ago, a few months ago. It came out in the British Medical Journal, which is a highly reputable journal, and was a study that was carried out in Lebanon on young adults who are overweight, and they were given apple cider vinegar, either 5, 10, or 15 milliliters a day, and they were followed for a 12-week period, and the researchers reported that they lost a significant amount of weight because they had taken this. Mm-hmm. And this study got a lot of publicity at that time. Why? Because the results were spectacular. The results were similar to what one sees with Ozempic or Wegovy. And, so there was a lot of talk about this in the scientific community. And very soon after the paper came out, and, after we had discussed it a couple of weeks later, the journal started to get letters from a lot of concerned scientists who looked at the data and did the same calculations that the researchers did, but did not come up with the same results. And they found all kinds of errors in the data. And when it all unraveled, it turned out that the data just did not support the conclusion. They had made statistical errors in the calculations. Now, of course, I didn't go into that, and I don't know exactly what the errors were, but they were significant enough that the paper has been retracted. And that is quite something, when a journal retracts a paper. That's not done haphazardly. It means because there really were all kinds of problems with the paper and that the results cannot be trusted. And the reason that, we originally talked about it was because you may remember that there was a series on Netflix called Apple Cider Vinegar, which talked about Belle Gibson, this woman in Australia who lied about having had cancer and treated it with all kinds of natural remedies. And the series was called Apple Cider Vinegar because that was reputed to be a natural remedy. Well, it turns out that certainly as far as weight control goes, the data just didn't stand up, so the paper was retracted. And I must say that originally I was also suspicious about this. Why? Because Dr. Oz touted it.
Uh-oh.
He did a whole show on this, and he was just fawning all over it. That we finally have something that may be a solution to the obesity crisis, and that it also had anti-diabetic properties, etc. All of that, of course, is not correct. And he has now marched on to a higher position, unfortunately. And, this is another story there.
But, Joe, to be fair, if we're going to clarify here, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the amazing thing we thought it was. It's not the all-in-one, all-purpose cure.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a fine thing to put on your salad. But just don't look at it as any kind of medication or any kind of health food. That's all. It's just, interesting that this paper that had such a big impact, because the media was all over it, has not been retracted.
Okay. The other thing to get to today, you say the killer protein bar, developed by a health guru, and I guess this is all over social media as well. I'm sure I've seen this too. So they want you to buy it, but not eat it. What?
This is a fascinating story, and it's all about Joe Wicks, who calls himself a body coach. He's in England. Honestly, I'd never heard of him before this whole thing started, but he seems to be a pretty big deal in England. And he doesn't have any kind of scientific background, but now he has come out with this TV documentary, which apparently aired last night. So in England, I guess we will eventually see it on YouTube or somewhere else. And it's called Joe Wicks, License to Kill. That was the name of it, kind of, sort of clever. And it was all about calling attention to eating a lot of overly processed foods. And of course, that's something that there is certainly concern about. And he wanted to call attention to this by creating a protein bar. And it's a protein bar that he advertises as something that should not be eaten, right? I mean, how often do you see an ad like that? And it says on the bar itself, it says "Deathly Bar." And of course, the story is that the ingredients in there are all ingredients that you find in ultra-processed foods, which he claims are dangerous. Now, there's a bit of overstatement there. I mean, to suggest that having maltodextrin in a protein bar is dangerous because it can cause diarrhea. I mean, that's in the amount that is in there. That's not the case. And he's got all kinds of ingredients in there. He's got dozens of ingredients. And, the suggestion is that you should not be eating this bar. And it actually says on it, because it can cause cancer, it can cause heart disease, it can cause high blood pressure. Now, of course, that is meant to be satirical. But I think it's not exactly the right approach, because it is kind of suggestive that those ingredients, which are indeed found in some foods, really have been shown to cause cancer or are deadly. So he's trying to do the right thing, but I think not going about it exactly the right way. But I'm going to be keen to see this Joe Wick's License to Kill documentary to see just how this evolves. But I think this may be sort of a situation where the heart is in the right place, but the brain didn't exactly follow it.
Okay. I just, everyone's got something to sell. It's interesting to use that as a ploy, I guess, if you will.
Yes.
Buy, don't eat it. So I guess it's kind of clever, I guess, in a way.
And he's, to be fair, he's not trying to sell these bars for profit.
Yeah.
Whatever money comes in is going to go to charity. And it indeed says on the bar, do not eat. So, I mean, it's just an interesting kind of gimmick to get people to pay attention to the problems with high ultra processed food diet. Anyway, I think once this becomes available on YouTube, which I think it will, then we'll chat about it some more, because when we can have some more information about this. But again, you have someone here who calls himself the body coach, who doesn't have any scientific background, making essentially a science TV documentary. So, that's one issue that I do have with it.
I got to tell you, when you spend enough time on social media and you start to see, and I guess it depends what rabbit hole you go down first, right? But you see the proliferation of people out there who are trainers, body coaches, sports nutritionists. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
It is.
How many of these people are out there?
I mean, you could spend your whole life on the social media finding things to criticize. But to be fair, you could also find things to commend.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of good stuff. But you have to know how to filter. And one of the problems is that some of the nonsense can be made to sound very seductive. And, that's why, in sort of my professional life, separating sense from nonsense is I think, so important, because you have to know what is worth listening to and what is not.
That's the hard part, right? We don't get anyone to filter that out for us. We got to make that up on our own. And
that's why we're here, Aaron. Yeah. That's why we're here.
God bless you, Joe. Dr. Joe Schwarcz, you can catch him Sundays at 3 here on CJD. Thank you, Joe.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.